In June 1942, a black coffin was carried through Berlin, wrapped in Nazi flags and surrounded by SS guards. Inside lay Reinhard Heydrich, one of the main architects of the Holocaust, praised by Hitler as the man with the iron heart. 3 years later, the Third Reich was gone. Its symbols were banned, its leaders hunted or dead. The world knew the names of the major war criminals. Heydrich's name became a symbol of cold, organized murder. But history rarely stops with a death certificate. Behind the famous perpetrator stood a wife, 4 children, and an extended family. They had lived in stolen homes, used forced labor, and enjoyed the privileges that came with terror. When the regime collapsed, they lost that protection, but not the name. What happens to a family when the father is remembered as one of the worst criminals of the 20th century? Do they pay a price, seek distance, or defend him to the end? This is the story of what happened to Reinhard Heydrich's family after World War II and how they chose to live with his legacy. Before we continue with the video and my further explanation about Reinhard Heydrich, I want to ask for your help. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subs, so I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and help me out. Okay, let's continue. Before we follow the family after 1945, we need to understand the world they came from. Reinhard Heydrich was not just another Nazi official. As head of the Reich Security Main Office, he oversaw the Gestapo, the criminal police, and the intelligence services. He chaired the Wannsee Conference in January 1942, where senior officials discussed how to organize the mass murder of Europe's Jews. To many historians, he was one of the central planners of the Holocaust. His wife, Lina von Osten, came from the island of Fehmarn in northern Germany. Born in 1911, she grew up in a conservative nationalist family and joined the Nazi movement early. She shared and encouraged Heydrich's anti-Semitic views. When they met in 1930, it was Lina who pushed him into the SS and deeper into the Nazi cause. They had 4 children: Klaus, Haida, Silke, and Marte. During the war, the family lived in a confiscated estate near Prague, taken from a Jewish industrialist. They had forced laborers in the household and lived in comfort, built directly on dispossession and fear. This was the world that shaped their sense of identity, privilege, and loyalty. In May 1942, Czech resistance fighters attacked Heydrich's car in Prague. He died of his wounds a few days later. The Nazi response was brutal. Mass arrests, executions, and the destruction of the villages of Lidice and Ležáky. For many Czechs, the name Heydrich would forever be linked to these reprisals. For Lina, however, the story looked very different. Hitler ordered that she be treated as the widow of a fallen hero. The family kept their grand estate near Prague, a property taken from a Jewish owner. Lina continued to live there with her children and household staff, while the war raged on around them. In October 1943, tragedy struck inside this privileged bubble. 10-year-old Klaus, the eldest son, rode his bicycle through the estate gate and collided with a truck. He died later that day. The boy, who had once been shown proudly in family photographs, became the first Heydrich child to die. By early 1945, the Red Army was advancing and Nazi power in Prague was collapsing. On advice from Heinrich Himmler, Lina gathered her remaining children and fled the estate. They left behind the castle, the servants, and much of their stolen wealth, and returned to her home island of Fehmarn in northern Germany. When the war ended in 1945, Lina Heydrich was no longer a protected hero's widow in occupied Czechoslovakia. She was now living back on Fehmarn with her 3 surviving children in the British occupation zone. The life of luxury in a stolen castle was gone. But what many expected, an arrest, a trial, or extradition, never came. Czechoslovakia did not forget her. In the late 1940s, Czech authorities asked for Lina to be handed over. They accused her of supporting the Nazi regime and abusing Jewish forced labourers at the estate near Prague. A court in Czechoslovakia eventually tried her in absentia and sentenced her to life imprisonment, but the British and later West German authorities refused to extradite her. She stayed on Fehmarn, legally out of reach. In West Germany, Lena went through denazification procedures. Over time, and in a pattern seen with many former Nazis, she was downgraded to a lesser category of offender. This decision opened the door for her next move, claiming that she was a war victim. Lena applied for a pension as the widow of a man killed by enemy action. At first, she was rejected, but she appealed again and again. Eventually, a West German court ruled that she was entitled to payments as the widow of a high-ranking police officer who had died in the war. For years, she received money from the state that had replaced Hitler's Reich. On Fehmarn, she ran a guest house and restaurant that became a quiet meeting place for former SS members. In public interviews and in her memoir, she defended her husband, questioned or minimized the Holocaust, and presented herself and her children as the ones who had paid the price. She never expressed real remorse for what her husband had done, or for the system that had given her family its privileges. Reinhard and Lena Heydrich had 4 children: Klaus, Heider, Silke, and Marte. Only 3 of them lived to see the post-war world. Klaus, the eldest, died in 1943 after the bicycle accident at the family estate near Prague. In later years, Lena often spoke of him as a personal tragedy, part of a narrative in which her family were victims of fate and the war, while avoiding the fact that their life in that estate was built on stolen property and forced labour. Heider, born in 1934, grew up in a house where his father was never treated as a criminal. As the war turned against Germany, Lena pulled him out of the Hitler Youth, afraid he might be sent to the front as a teenage fighter. After 1945, he built a career as an engineer and later became a manager at an aircraft company in West Germany. Publicly, he kept a low profile, but in rare interviews he defended his father, downplayed his role in the Holocaust, and showed no clear break with the past. Silke, born in 1939, is the most obscure of the children. She trained as a singer and appears to have stayed largely out of the spotlight. Little reliable information is available about her later life, which may itself be a form of escape from the burden of the Heydrich name. The youngest Marte was born after her father's death and never knew him. As an adult, she stayed on Fehmarn and reportedly ran a small clothing shop. In one comment, quoted in German media, she described her father's name as a shadow that follows her, day and night. Yet, like her siblings, she has never made a detailed public reckoning with his crimes. The fate of the Heydrich family after 1945 mirrors the larger story of West Germany's struggle with its past. A mass murderer's widow could avoid extradition, win a state pension, and live comfortably, while many victims' families received little recognition. Inside the family, Reinhard remained a heroic or tragic figure, even as historians documented his role in genocide. The name Heydrich became a test of memory, between denial, quiet avoidance, and a small minority willing to face the truth directly. Reinhard Heydrich died in 1942, but his story did not end at his grave. His widow lived in comfort, his children chose silence or defense, and only a few relatives spoke openly about his crimes. Their choices show how a family can carry, bend, or resist a terrible legacy. If this story made you think, tell me, should descendants speak out or stay silent? If you like this video, leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe for more history stories.